The wrath of nature is upon you in this episode of Battle Guides featuring Lixis. Lixis is a defensive brawler who uses her amazing unique ability and great styles to debilitate you to death. However, that all comes at the cost of being slow, having no movement, and generally being easy to card lock. Lixis' unique ability is Withering Touch. Whenever Lixis hits an opponent, that opponent must select and discard one of their bases. This base goes with their current attack pair and cycles with that until it goes back into the hand as normal. Now this unique ability is really simple. It took me like 2 sentences to explain, but trust me, this unique ability is super good. Like really good. It has a lot of power in it. And the best thing about it is that it is the ultimate icing on the cake unique ability. See, all Lixis has to do is play normally. Being a generally defensive brawler who kind of is like a juggernaut, she just trades for days. But the thing about it is that whenever Lixis trades, she often doesn't get a big life difference. For example, the opponent hits her for 3 damage and then Lixis hits back for 4 damage. See, the amount of life difference is like 1 or 2 usually. However, Lixis gets an extra bonus. Her opponent must now discard one of their bases. And this is really good. Now, that's not such a big benefit. The opponent can pick whatever base they discard, so this means that they can discard the base that will obviously be the least useful to them. However, that still makes Lixis' job easier. Now that she has less options for the opponent to do, so Lixis can basically have an easier time predicting her opponent's attacks. Simply put, every base your opponent discards is 3 less possibilities for them to play. Because you originally have 3 styles and 5 bases, that equates to 15 possible attacks. However, if you make them discard one of their bases, they'll be left with 4 bases and only 3 styles. This means they only have 12 possible attacks. Now, if you hit your opponent over and over again, you can make them discard at most usually 2 bases. This means that you've trimmed down their amount of attacks from 15 to 9. That is super good. That's really good, in fact. And that honestly is one of the main draws to Lixis, and playing her properly is as simple as just playing her. You don't have to look at your unique ability and dedicate a lot of your time to making your unique ability work, because the only way it does work is to just play the game normally. Trade and whack your opponents in the face. It's as simple as that. Now let's go to her styles. Let's start off with Pruning. Pruning is a big payout attack, and on reveal you gain +1 power and +1 priority for each base in your opponent's discards. Note that your opponent always has 2 by default. This means that this attack actually has better stats than it looks. Aside from that, the more times you've hit your opponent before you play this card, the higher the chance that they'll have a lot of discards, a lot of bases in their discards. This means that this attack can deal a ton of damage if you've hit your opponent 2 times in the last 2 beats. Now, it has an extra effect on it that a lot of people sometimes forget about, is that when you hit your opponent with this, you can basically forcefully make your opponent discard an extra base. This is super good. It basically lets Lixis repeatedly, and I mean repeatedly, make you just starved for resources. Lixis can hit you with a regular attack, then a pruning, and then suddenly you just have no more cards in your hand. A usual case is that you hit them with pruning and you make them discard 2, while on the previous beat you already made them discard 1. This means that your opponent now has 3 bases from their hand. What? If you think about it like this, 5 bases at the start and now it's been reduced to 2? This means that your opponent only has 6 possible options and 6 possible attacks to do does not sound good for most opponents. Remember that although discarding your opponent's weakest card isn't necessarily the best thing, if you made them discard 3 cards, it usually means that at least one of their good cards has gone into the discard, and that can be very debilitating to a lot of opponents. Now when it comes to attack pairs, this pairs very well with Drive for the many obvious reasons. Aside from the fact that it has lots of range, Drive is generally fast, letting you get that hit in. It also synergizes very well with Lixis' unique base Lance because it gives her the magical range 3 that she needs. As to why Lance makes sense, I will explain why later on when I get to Lance. Next up is Rooted, and Rooted has excellent stats. Though it is slow, it has plus power and a really weird range modifier. Note that the range is -1 to 0. This simply means that Lixis' minimum range is reduced. Think about it this way, if Lixis were to play Rooted Burst, instead of having a range 2 to 3 attack, she would have a range 1 to 3 attack. Now that that's been explained, this is really powerful because it has Soak 2. For almost no penalty, because again, Lixis is already slow to begin with and she doesn't really mind all of the priority penalties, but it does have a cool passive effect as well. Lixis ignores all movement effects applied to her by opponents as well as herself. Now this is very interesting because Lixis can basically negate 3 things in her kit. Number 1, she can negate her own dashes. Number 2, she can negate her own bursts. And number 3, she can negate her own drives. Long story short, Lixis, being a trading kind of character, loves Rooted a lot. It lets her basically get positive almost all the time. Because if you translate her Soak into pseudo power, it basically equates to a 3-point life difference most of the time. And 3 points of life difference is amazing, especially on someone who makes you discard cards when you get hit. It's really good, and I really recommend this attack with attacks like Shot, because Shot synergizes very well with the Soak, giving you magical stun card 3, and it also synergizes very well with Burst. Now, Burst is a weird thing because it gives you range 1 to 3, meaning that you no longer have the minimum range on Burst, meaning that if your opponent does drive towards you, you still can hit them so long as they don't stun you. The Soak 2 helps a lot with that, so it's very, very useful. But one other thing is that it negates the start of beat retreat. Lixis doesn't have a lot of movement, and Lixis is a character who's generally loving it at range 1, 2, and 3. So bursting sometimes makes Lixis go away from her preferred range. This is a way to remedy that, and it allows you to stay in range while dealing damage to your opponent, having decent soak, as well as having decent range. Next up is Naturalizing, and Naturalizing is the thing that makes a lot of characters cry. It has a long list of effects, but I'll start with the stats. It has range 0 to 1, power -1, and priority +1. Now this is very good because it allows Lixis to be fast and has a decent amount of hit confirm. However, it's the reveal effect that makes a lot of people scared. Long story short, this long series of text over here simply means nobody's antis work, and if you try to get stat boosts and stat bonuses, they don't work either. Basically, Lixis degrades the game into just being my attack pair versus your attack pair. And that's really strong, especially against a lot of the cast who gets most of their stats from stat bonuses or from some other weird effects of their tokens and whatnot. This is really, really good. It allows you to basically make opponents waste resources, or at least scare them into not spending resources. A lot of the time, Lixis can just manhandle you just by having this style in her hand. When she has this in her hand, you can scare opponents endlessly because they don't know when to spend their resources. And as a character who basically makes you discard resources, Lixis can become the ultimate debilitating force with this style and her unique ability. So not only does she reduce the amount of options in your hand, she reduces the amount of options you have even in your unique ability or other effects. Because simply put, there's a big chance that Lixis can use Naturalizing on you and force you to waste those resources. An excellent Lixis player knows when and where to play her Naturalizing style. She has to be able to hit opponents' resources with it, otherwise she's just playing a really mediocre stat style. Now when it comes to attack pairs, I highly recommend pairing this attack with Drive. It synergizes well with the range and priority. And on the other hand, it also pairs very well with Strike. This might seem weird, but it's really good. Long story short, if your opponent doesn't have burst in their hand, playing a Naturalizing Strike oftentimes just neutralizes a lot of what your opponent can do. Strike has a lot of stun guard, adding the +1 priority makes it, better than most other attacks, as well as having the extra range means that you can counteract one of Strike's biggest weaknesses in the form of Grasp. All of that together makes this attack very good, so watch out for that. If you wanted your Pruning turn to be better, maybe try using Venomous before that. Venomous is super good. I can't deny that it's super good. It has good power and really decent range and priority in that there's no penalties on it. And then you have the effects. Stun Guard 2, before activating, advance up to 1 space. And then on hit, on the next beat, your opponent has priority -2. Boom. Wrecked. This thing is super good. It has a lot of great stats. It has Stun Guard 2. And it has a hit confirm, which Lixis desperately wants. Whereas all the other styles had range on them, this one has movement. And that is crucial when playing Lixis, because of one big thing. She doesn't have a lot of movement. This means that she barely gets to stay in the range she wants. This means that Venomous allows you to do that, and that's really good. Now, the on-hit effect is also very powerful, allowing Lixis to technically gain priority +2 for the next beat. And that's very strong when you consider the fact that a lot of her styles are generally slow to above average in speed. Doing this basically ensures that Lixis becomes first the next turn, and that's very good because if Lixis can hit you, stun you, and then make you discard a card, she just gains so much advantage that you'll start crying yourself to sleep. Now when it comes to attack pairs, I highly recommend it with, you guessed it, Drive, because it just works really well with that. And of course, it also works with Shot, because the Stun Guard 2 plus the Stun Guard 2 is Magical Stun Guard 4, plus it almost always ensures that you'll hit because it's range 1 to 5. Next up is Vine. Vine is really good because it has range +0 to 2, power +0, and priority -2. Fine, it's very slow, but it has Stun Guard 3 and a great on-hit effect that allows Lixis to pull people in. Now this might not sound like much, it's just like, hey, just hit him and I can pull him near. No, because you have to understand a few things. This thing hits 2 magic numbers on its own, without any base. On its own without any base. What? See, range +0 to 2 plus any base results in at least range 1 to 3 all the time. All the time. Then Stun Guard 3 on its own is already Magical Stun Guard 3. So whatever you play with this thing will work. And it will be amazing. Then the on-hit effect allows Lixis to pull people closer. Because like I said, you want them to be at range 1, 2, or 3. So if your opponent is super duper far away, this thing makes them super duper near. Or at least not as far away as before. Now when it comes to attack pairs, I highly recommend pairing this thing with Strike. Because this thing with Strike just is amazing. You have Stun Guard 8. Who will stun you out of that? Not even Cadenza's Clockwork Shot will stun you out of that. That's just how strong it is. And it also pairs very well with Shot. Although it sounds like overkill, some opponents do try their best to be at max range from you because you're Lixis and you don't have a lot of movement. This is a great way to remedy that because you can just hit them with a shot and then pull them near. It's as simple as that, and it's very effective, and it might seem like a dumb style, but it does a lot for Lixis, and it does a lot of the things she needs to do with it. So, it's one of her best styles, and I highly recommend using it. And finally, we move on to her unique base, Lance. Lance is range 2, power 3, priority 5. You're seeing how great this can be, because of the fact that it has great power and great priority on it. But you may have a problem with the range. This basically means that if your opponent is melee to you, you can't hit them. But you have the awesome passive effect. Opponents may not enter spaces adjacent to you, but they can still exit those spaces. So what does it basically mean? It basically means that your opponents cannot go into range 1, which effectively means that this thing, your opponent can't make this thing miss by getting closer to you. Because again, they can't. It also means that this is a dash counter, as your opponents can't enter the spaces adjacent to you, which means that if they're already next to you, they can't even switch sides, because that space here is a space adjacent to you. This means that your opponent can dash out of this thing, and if you're cornering them, it'll mean that they'll get stuck in the corner really hard. And as Lixis, you want to corner people a lot because, again, that's just what you do with it, and it's really, really strong. Lance is really fast and has decent power. So on Lixis, who has a lot of 0 to +1 styles, it's very good. That being said, it's not necessarily bad to pair it with her slow attacks, because Vine has Stun Guard 3 anyway, and Rooted has, you know, amazing soak too. So with all of that combined, Lance is just a very powerful, unique base that synergizes with a lot of her styles. Now when it comes to attack pairs, I highly recommend pairing this attack with Pruning. Pruning gives it an extra range, which is very good, and it basically capitalizes on Lance's big speed and decent power to get you a big payout attack that can possibly beat out a lot of your opponent's moves. And on the other hand, it pairs very well with Naturalizing, because Naturalizing allows you to negate a lot of your opponent's effects, meaning that your almost always superior base whacks them in the face and stuns them. Lixis' 2 overdrive finishers are Virulent Miasma and Life Virus. Virulent Miasma is a medium-range overdrive finisher that deals decent damage and has decent priority. On hit, it allows you to basically make your opponent lose 2 life each turn. And this is very good because it allows you to bring your opponent closer and closer to death, even if they dodge you with a myriad of their attacks. Now, when it comes to this attack, remember that you need at least maybe 1 or 2 turns for this thing to be really useful after you hit them with the overdrive. So be very careful about it because you might not get the full benefit out of it before you die. Lixis' other overdrive finisher is Life Virus. It's a long-range overdrive finisher that has a lot of minimum range. It deals the same amount of damage as the other overdrive, but it's slower. However, it makes up for that by having Soak and Stun Guard that are way more than the magical Stun Guard 3. Now, when this thing hits, it basically does the same thing as the other one. If your opponent were to reveal a specific style or base, they lose 3 life for each of those that they reveal. So that means they lose 6 if they reveal both. This could be a great way to prevent your opponent from using specific styles or bases that you dislike. So if you're facing against a Cadenza, maybe picking Clockwork Shot might be the best way to go. However, remember, like the other overdrive finisher, this thing's very weird as well, because if you're already on 7 life to use your overdrive, it'll take some time for this thing to have value. More so than the other one, because your opponent can just choose to not play those cards and they won't take any damage. So be very careful about using Lixis' overdrive finishers because they take quite some time to be very good, but when you're at 7 health, you don't have that time. Now, when it comes to using her special action, Cancel and Pulse are Lixis' 2 best friends, because of the simple fact that Lixis doesn't have a lot of range or movement. And this means that Lixis has to make up for it by having either a Cancel to prevent your opponent from moving with their burst or with their drives, or you use a Pulse if your opponent's already far away from you so that you can move the board around to force them to be in the corner. Now let's move on to the part that everybody loves, Lixis Advanced Strategies and Combos. Lixis Advanced Strategies are not advanced at all. What I told you at the start of the video is basically what I'll parrot right now. Your unique ability is icing on the Lixis cake. The Lixis cake is all about just trading, effectively trading with the opponent, getting a life difference of 1 or 2 maybe, and then you get the compounded benefit that whenever you whack them, they lose options. As Lixis, you're a brawler because you try to capitalize on your opponent's lack of resources. That's very apparent in her use of Naturalizing and her unique ability. But a lot of her styles do the same thing as well. Vine allows her to reposition the opponent. Stuff like Pruning allows her to pressure the opponents and make them discard more cards. Heck, even Rooted allows you to minimize the effectiveness of your opponent's movement effects. So all of those together make Lixis just a really strong character. She's not about doing big attacks. She's about doing small, incrementally good attacks that all compound in advantages that eventually landslide her to victory. So when using Lixis, keep that in mind. It's not about big beats, it's about getting value over time. And that is pretty much seen all throughout her kit. Heck, even her overdrive finishers are about value over time. Let's move on to some Lixis combos. Let's start off with Pruning Drive. Pruning Drive is super good. It's a big payout attack most of the time, and it just has a great range, and it makes your opponent discard more cards. With the hit confirm on Drive and the stats on Pruning, these two cards form one of the strongest Lixis attacks that you can play. Next up is Rooted Shot. Rooted Shot is pretty good. It allows you to basically soak up a lot of damage, deal a lot of damage at range, and ensure that almost all the time your opponent can't move you from your current position. All of these together are really good for Lixis because she doesn't want to stay far away from the opponent, so the Rooted ignoring movement effects is really good, and she trades a positive 3 most of the time. With that in mind, at a range 1 to 4, it's a pretty good attack that is not devastating, but the advantages that you gain from playing it are so good that it in itself is devastating. And finally, we have Vine Strike. Vine Strike is again one of those attacks that isn't necessarily the most amazing. You don't look at it and you say, that is broken. No, you look at Vine Strike and you see a very good attack that has a lot of defensive capabilities, can trade above by 1 HP most of the time, but it gives Lixis 2 distinct benefits that benefits her a lot because of who she is as a character. Number 1, it has decent range, and as a character who doesn't have enough range, that's really good. And the second one is that it allows her to pull opponents close to her. The closer the opponents are to Lixis, the better her life is. And honestly, the more powerful her options get. So with that in mind, use this to not only scare your opponents with such a great defensive attack, but use it to reposition opponents who think they can get away from you, but obviously cannot. And that pretty much does it for this episode of Battle Guides. I hope you guys all enjoyed the video, and I'm sorry it's a bit late again. Hell week at school, just utterly devastating to me. Now, I hope you guys like Lixis. Lixis is honestly one of my favorite characters. It's actually, she's Brad's favorite character, at least from the War set. The thing about Lixis that I really love is that she embodies this thing that you don't have to necessarily think about your unique ability all the time. Sometimes, simply letting your unique ability run its course is the best way to make use of it. Lixis, Bendros, and a bunch of other characters exhibit that, and I honestly think it's a very elegant design. Now, if you guys were interested in BattleCON from watching this video, or if you want to see other level 99 games, check the description out below. If you want to join our community, send me an email or any of that, check the description out below, it's there. Now, if you want to write a comment or ask a question, comment section, and I'll respond as soon as possible. And I'm sorry if other people have already asked questions and I haven't responded. Trust me, I am looking for the answers, it's just that people aren't replying to me. Because I know a lot of the rules, but I don't know some of the errata rulings. So I tend to ask people who know more about those things than I do. Now, thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget your special action. And thank you, World of Indines. Thank you, and good night.